Hi, I'm Dan, and I'm excited to welcome you to the Ultimate HTML Full Course. This course has been designed for complete beginners with no coding experience, and by the end, you'll be able to write HTML at a professional level. It's by far the most comprehensive and high-quality course you'll find online, and goes well beyond the standard tutorials you'll see elsewhere on YouTube. My teaching style is not to just talk over code, but instead, I've carefully crafted this course to be a visual masterpiece, with interactive animations, beautiful graphics, and professional editing, making it fun to watch to ensure you remain engaged in order to maximize your learning. I also use the most effective teaching techniques for visual learners, where the course is jam-packed with diagrams, analogies, code annotations, tables, and much more. By far the most useful feature is that every topic ends with a summary card, so that by the end of the course, you have a full set of cards consolidating everything you need to know for HTML. So let's look at the HTML course program. We'll be covering the following topics: an introduction to HTML, HTML text, hyperlinks and attributes, self-closing tags and images, HTML forms, containers and semantic HTML, and scientific HTML. Each of these topics contains many subtopics, which comprehensively covers everything you need to know to get a solid foundation that will enable you to code HTML at a professional level. Throughout the course, we will be working on a major project called Quill. It is a journal-taking web application. I came up with this idea because I often wrote notes on my phone about business idea, important tasks, memories, and many other things, and it would all get lost without an easy way to categorize them. And I also wanted everything to appear neatly on a central dashboard. Quill is a full-stack web application that is built from scratch. It is known as a MERN web application, with React on the front end, Express and Node on the back end, and MongoDB as the database. So you've already had a look at the homepage. Let's take a brief walkthrough of the application. Users can create a new account or log in. As a registered user, you have a dashboard with all your journals, and you can view an individual journal, edit that journal, delete the journal, and of course create a new journal. Now in this HTML course, we of course won't be building all of this. We will just be making a start by coding up the HTML for the homepage and the page used to create a new journal. The reason I wanted to show you the complete project is so you can see how HTML is one piece of the puzzle and how it fits into a full-stack web application inside a real-life working web application. I also hope it will get you excited and motivated about starting this journey and knowing you too can eventually build something like this by following along with me inside my bootcamp. Now, all the complete coding files, presentation slides, and summary cards from this video can be downloaded from the description below. So let's finally jump in. We're going to start off the course with an introduction to HTML, where we'll get an understanding of what HTML actually is and meet the all-important HTML tag. We'll also learn how to properly save HTML files, as well as set up the correct document structure. Let's get started by covering the basics and laying the foundation with an introduction to HTML. We'll be discussing what is HTML and HTML tags and elements. So first up, what is HTML? HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. That's a bit of a mouthful, but it is simple and not as intimidating as it sounds. Firstly, there is the hypertext part. This refers to the linking between different web pages, which is the driving force behind the World Wide Web. Now, these links can either be internal or external. To understand this, let's take a look at Sky News. We're currently on the home page, but like most browsing experiences, we click around to different pages. These are what we call internal links. We're clicking on links that take us to different pages, all within the same website. In this case, different articles. Now, if we scroll to the footer, we can also navigate to pages that are not within our website or domain, and these are called external links. For example, if we click on this Facebook link, we're taken to the Sky News Facebook page. So what about the markup language part? This refers to the special syntax we use to define and structure the content on our web page. The best way to understand what markup is to look at PowerPoint presentations, an analogy we'll be using throughout the next few topics. I've made this simple PowerPoint of my top 5 funny things I've come across on the internet, a list I highly recommend you check out. I've posted links to each in the description below. Anyways, as you can see, I have a range of different types of content on this slide, like a heading, paragraph text, an image, and a numbered list. Behind the scenes, PowerPoint is taking each of these pieces of content or elements and applying some magic to make them display how we intend. For example, if you think about the numbered list, the actual content I entered is just text, no different to the heading. But by clicking on the numbered list icon in PowerPoint when I made this, the text is being converted into a numbered list. In a nutshell, we're taking content and applying some special rules in order to define it properly. Now that we have a basic understanding of what HTML is, I'd like to highlight that HTML is the foundation of a web page. It's because HTML is needed on every web page to display content. Every web page you visit has various elements such as headings, paragraphs, lists, and images. And to effectively display these components in your browser, the use of HTML is essential. To see this in action, let's take a look at one of the most OG websites around. Berkshire Hathaway is a web page that is built just in HTML. Berkshire Hathaway is Warren Buffett's conglomerate holding company. The dude is worth like $100 billion, so he could definitely spare a few dollars for a better website. The first thing that will jump out at you is just how basic the website is. It's just because there's no CSS to make it pretty or JavaScript for interactivity. It's just HTML to display the content and links to other pages. Now, besides Warren Buffett, most modern web pages use CSS to add visual identity and JavaScript for interactivity. A great example of a more modern web page is one of my favorite companies, Duolingo. I love how minimalist it is and how they let their incredible graphics deliver the messaging. One of the coolest aspects of this homepage is this section down here, where as I scroll, you can see the graphics move with my scroll up and down. Now, despite all this fancy stuff going on, at the end of the day, there is still HTML needed to display all the content you see. HTML is written using what we call HTML tags. HTML tags will wrap around content, which provides instructions to the browser for how to organize and display the content. There are a lot of different HTML tag types that are used to display different types of content. But let's start with a fairly easy to understand tag, the paragraph tag, which defines a paragraph. An HTML tag, like the paragraph tag, has an opening tag that looks like this. There's also a closing tag that will look like this. These tags wrap the content. In this case, some paragraph text that says, "I am a paragraph." Now let's go through every part in detail. On the left, we have our opening tag, which starts off with a left angle bracket. Then there is the tag name, which obviously will change depending on the type of content we want to display. In this case, it is a P, standing for paragraph. Then there is the right angle bracket, which closes the tag. Then there is the content itself, in this case some paragraph text. The paragraph closing tag also starts off with a left angle bracket. The major difference between the opening and closing tag is the presence of the / over here. Then we have the tag name again, and the right angle bracket again. This unit of opening tag, closing tag, and content make up what is called an HTML element. Now, there is a long list of HTML tags, 142 of them at the time of recording. So there are a lot of tags. I've chosen 40 of them at random here. The good news is that there are only really a handful of them that are commonly used over and over again in building our web pages. Reaching for these becomes second nature fairly quickly, so don't feel overwhelmed. We will go through the important ones in detail throughout this section. In this section of the course, we'll be building a summary card called Introduction to HTML. we looked at HTML tags. We looked at the paragraph tags, which consisted of an opening tag, the paragraph content, in this case paragraph text, and the closing tag. This unit of opening tag, closing tag, and content makes up an HTML element. So in order to write HTML, we're going to need to install a few applications on your computer and be setting up the Web Development Toolkit. We'll be talking about text editors and browsers. So just like a builder has a toolkit of hammers, drills, and other tools, there is also the Web Development Toolkit. The first tool we need is a text editor. This is where code is written and edited. The tool we're going to be using in this course is VS Code. It's what is called an Integrated Development Environment, or IDE, which has a lot of features to make writing code easier and more efficient. It's 100% free, and you can download it from code.visualstudio.com. I've posted a link in the description below. Once you've installed VS Code, you should eventually see a welcome page that looks like this. In the next topic, we'll be coding our first page. And usually to get started, under the Start heading over here, we'd either start a new file or open up an existing file or folder. Now, you're probably not going to have anything under Recent, because it's likely you've never created any coding files before. In my VS Code, I'm showing recent files and folders that I've been working with. Let's now have a look at this left navigation bar. The first tab, Explorer, is where you open folders, and it is where our folders and files will be located. The Search tab allows you to search through all your files to look for specific keywords. You can also search and replace them. Source control and debugging, don't worry about for now. And the last tab here, Extensions, is where we can install useful tools into VS Code. It's kind of like the App Store or Google Play Store for VS Code, where the community has created useful tools that make our coding more efficient. And we'll be installing some of these as we move through the course. The last thing I want to show you is in the settings here. You can choose your own visual theme. If I go to Themes and click Color Theme, you'll see I have a list of inbuilt themes I can choose. The theme I'm using is Dark Modern. And for the version of Visual Code Studio I have, this is the default theme. Now, you can choose whatever theme you like, but I would suggest using the theme I'm using, just so that everything you see in my videos will perfectly match what you have on your end. Just to show you what this does if we pick another theme, I'm going to choose something quite different, like red. You'll see straight away that we get a totally different color theme in VS Code. Alright, I'm just going to change it back to the default theme. There are also a bunch of other settings you can tinker with. If I click on the cog icon and click Settings, there is a lot you can change. For example, you can change the font size, or even the font family. I'm not going to change any of these, I just wanted to show you that there are settings you can change. We're going to be creating our first coding file in the next chapter. So for now, as long as you can successfully install VS Code, you're doing well. Now you can also use a regular text editor, which comes pre-installed on your device to write code. I have a Mac, which is TextEdit for me. But this is not recommended as it lacks essential features and functionality. So we'll be using VS Code. The next tool we need is a browser. The browser is where code is rendered, run, and tested. The browser I'll be using in this course is Google Chrome. Chrome is the browser of choice as it has very powerful development tools, which we'll see later on in the course. It is also free, and you can download it from google.com/Chrome. I've posted a link in the description below. Once you've downloaded it and opened it for the first time, it will look something like this. Now, of course, there are other browsers like Firefox, but Chrome is the most popular choice among developers. Just to round out this video, it's important to understand that a text editor is used for all programming languages, like JavaScript, Ruby, Python, etc. We'll be using this throughout the course to write all our code. On the other hand, the browser is only used to run and view HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. It is primarily a front-end tool. Next up, we'll learn how to create HTML files. We'll be looking at different types of files and how to save HTML files. Before discussing HTML files specifically, I want us to get a better understanding of file types in general. All digital assets have a file type that indicates how the data is structured, encoded, and stored. We'll start by taking a look at very common file types you've likely come across. Firstly, images. Common file types include JPEG or PNG. For audio, common file types include MP3 or WAV. For video, common file types include MP4 or MOV. And for documents, common file types are PDF and TXT. An HTML file is a type of document, so it belongs in this category. It has the .html file extension. Now I want to look at creating, editing, and viewing files. Files are often created and edited in one program and viewed in another. For example, images. A program like Photoshop is commonly used to create and edit image files. The image file could then be exported as a JPEG. This file is then viewed in an application that can render the image, like Mac Preview or Microsoft Photos. This is no different to HTML. An application like VS Code is commonly used to create and edit HTML files. The HTML file is then exported with a .html file type extension, and this file is then rendered in your browser, like Chrome, where you're viewing it. This may be blindingly obvious to you, but it wasn't to me. I thought HTML was some kind of superpower file. I guess it was because it was the first time I was creating a coding type of file. The important thing to realize here is that HTML as a file type is no different to any others. It is created in one program and rendered in another, just like images. Let's now take a look at saving HTML files. HTML files are commonly saved in lowercase, and files containing multiple words are hyphen separated. We'll soon be creating an HTML file called first page. You'll notice that the file extension is .html, which means that this is an HTML file. It's all lowercase, and as there are more than two words, we separate the words by a hyphen. All right, let's jump into VS Code and make our first HTML file. First, we go here and click New File, then select Text File, and then click Select Language, and type HTML in the search box, and click it. I want to be clear here. Just because I selected HTML, it does not mean that this is now an HTML file. I need to specifically save it as a .html file to achieve that. Selecting HTML as the file type previously just gives me some helpful tools specific for writing HTML in VS Code that will make writing it a lot easier, and we'll see soon. So let's write the simple paragraph we saw earlier. We had our P opening tag, the content I am a paragraph, and the P closing tag. Now the good news about VS Code is that it has a built-in tool called Emmet, which helps autocomplete our HTML. So instead of manually writing the HTML tags like I did before, if I just write the letter P and hit enter, the paragraph tags appear. And this is what I was talking about before in terms of selecting this as an HTML file in VS Code. We get helpful tools like Emmet. I'm now going to go ahead and save this page. On my Mac, I'm going to hit Command S. For now, I'm just going to save this on my desktop, and I'm going to call this first-page. Again, following the rules we spoke about earlier. We have our HTML file ending in a .html file extension. We have the name of the file all lowercase, and because there are two words, we separate them with a hyphen. So there you have it. You've created your first HTML file in VS Code. And like we saw before, if I double click to try view this file, it's automatically going to open up in my browser because that's where you view HTML files. And you can see your first remarkable web page of I am a paragraph. All right, to finish up, let's add to our summary for this topic, Introduction to HTML. So in this chapter, we learned about HTML files. We created our first HTML file, first-page.html. We saw that we needed the HTML file extension. the name of the file had to all be lowercase, and if there were more than 2 words, we hyphen separated them. Continuing on, we'll explore the essential layout and components that define a web page by looking at HTML boilerplate. We'll be discussing document structure, doc type, the HTML tag, the head tag, and the body tag. So, what is HTML document structure about? Every HTML document requires boilerplate code. Boilerplate just means code that has to be included. You often hear the word boilerplate being used in the context of contracts. For example, my rental agreement has boilerplate text. There will be a specific clause about governing law, something along the lines of, "This contract shall be enforced by the laws of England." This is a boilerplate clause. It would be in every rental contract in England. Looking back at the first page HTML file we made in the previous chapter, it contained a single paragraph element. Now, technically, this HTML file is incomplete and could cause rendering issues. To have a valid HTML file, we need other elements. What you can see here is the boilerplate HTML. An HTML template or boilerplate provides the basic structure and essential elements needed for a web page. Now, this can look like a lot of extra stuff just for a single paragraph, but it is all necessary and we'll go through each line step by step. Starting with the first line, doc type. This line flags to the browser that this is an HTML5 file. And this line of code is not actually an HTML element, but it is important. So what is HTML5, I hear you ask? HTML5 is just the latest version of HTML. An older version of this declaration would look something like this. I've just put this here for reference. It's not something you would ever use today, and it's why I've made it a bit washed out. Continuing on with our PowerPoint analogy we've been using so far, this is equivalent to the different versions of PowerPoint files. As you probably know, when you save a PowerPoint, you can select a file format. You have options like .ppt and .pptx, where pptx is the more recent version with additional features, just like HTML5. Moving on to the HTML tag. This is the root HTML element which wraps all other elements. It's like the binding and cover of a book, a wrapper containing everything inside. In our PowerPoint analogy, this is equivalent to the PowerPoint itself, where we make the slides and save information about it. It's the actual PowerPoint desktop application. Next up is the head tag. The head tag contains key information about the document that does not appear on the web page. In this example, inside the head tags, we have another element called the title element, which gives our HTML document a title. Now, this may be a bit confusing, but the title is not the same as the file name. Let's have a look at this inside VS Code. I've made a new HTML file here in VS Code, which contains the boilerplate elements. I'm going to title this page Document. And I'm going to save this file as second page. Now, if I open up this page in my browser, you'll see the title name, which I call Document, appears up in the tab here, which is different to the file name, which is second-page.html. Don't worry too much about this now. I just wanted to show that the title is not the same as the file name. Now, there is other stuff that goes in the head, which we will look at later in this video. Back to our PowerPoint analogy, this is equivalent to the properties of the PowerPoint that is not visible on the slides. I actually didn't even know about this before I made this video, but you can save information about a PowerPoint presentation, like title, subject, author, company, etc. The final section of the HTML boilerplate is the body tag. The body tag contains all the visible content on a web page. In this example, you can see a single paragraph, but in real-world HTML documents, this is where the meat of the HTML is. There is usually a lot more here. In our PowerPoint analogy, this is equivalent to the content in a PowerPoint. things like headings, images, and lists. I'm going to go make a new HTML file and show you a neat trick. Just to remind you, we go New File, we select Text File, we click Select a Language, and search for HTML. We saw in the previous chapter a built-in tool to VS Code called Emmet. Emmet also provides us a really easy shortcut to generate the HTML boilerplate. All we do is type exclamation mark and enter. I personally don't ever write my own HTML boilerplate, I just use this shortcut. Now this boilerplate code does have a few extra things we haven't seen yet, so let's go through what they are. So we'll be looking at the boilerplate shortcut and what it generates. First, inside the HTML tag, there is something called an attribute, shown in red here, which is extra information for the tag. Don't worry about exactly how this works right now. We will be spending a lot more time on this later. This attribute flags that the primary language of this document is English. If the web page was for another audience, like Spanish, French, or Japanese, this is what would be there instead. Now these are called meta tags. Their job is to provide important information to browsers. We do not use them when writing HTML. They are more commonly grabbed from other places. For example, if I wanted to install some analytics tracking software, I'd commonly copy and paste meta tags from the analytics tracking software into the head here. Basically, don't worry about them beyond this video. I won't be using them at all in the course. I just want you to get a basic understanding of their existence in the context of boilerplate HTML. The first meta tag contains this charset equals UTF-8. This is a system for computers to store numbers, letters, symbols, and special characters. In simple terms, it's a system for how characters, like those in the alphabet, are converted into units of memory inside a computer. Seriously, don't worry about the details of this, just know we need it. This next bit ensures content is displayed correctly across different devices, especially mobile. If you can remember back to the early smartphone days, you'll recall websites appearing in desktop versions on mobiles, with tiny, hard-to-read text and clunky navigation, requiring constant zooming in and out. This line of code, along with modern design techniques, prevents this from happening. Now, in all honesty, if I was on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, and I had to select the correct HTML boilerplate and there were similar options, I probably wouldn't be able to. So don't stress about all the details, just use the shortcut. So let's finish off by adding to our summary card. We looked at the HTML boilerplate. The major parts of the boilerplate were the head section, where information is not displayed on the page, and the body section, which is the content that is displayed on the page. Finally, we'll look at best practices for organizing and visually structuring your code, using nesting and indenting. We'll first take a look at nesting, and then indenting. So let's first take a look at nesting. I'm going to pull up the HTML boilerplate we looked at in the previous chapter. To highlight the concept of nesting, I'm going to move all the HTML elements in line like this. Nesting is about how HTML elements are placed inside one another, creating a hierarchical structure. Now, although these elements look like they're on the same level, there is still a hierarchical structure. I kind of think of it like those Russian dolls, where each doll lives inside another. And for us, in the context of HTML, elements live inside other elements. We use the term parent to describe the element that wraps other elements. Here we can see a set of head tags behaving as a parent. They are wrapping the title element, which we refer to as a child. Here is another example of the parent-child relationship, where the body tag is the parent wrapping the paragraph element, which is the child. Now, it is incredibly common in HTML documents to have nested elements inside other nested elements, again like the Russian dolls. We can see this over here, with the HTML tags, which is a parent, wrapping everything in the document, where the head tags and body tags are now the children of the HTML tag. So this document has two levels of nesting. The HTML tags are the first level of parents, and their head and body tags are the second level of parents. It is very common for there to be many levels of nesting in a typical HTML document. Moving on to the idea of indenting, which can often be confused with nesting. As you can see, it is very difficult to read and see which HTML elements are nested inside another, as they are all in line. So to make our life easier, we indent our HTML, which visually organizes code to quickly identify the hierarchy of elements. VS Code also has guides that makes it easier to see how the code is nested. VS Code also helps by automatically indenting our code. It knows whether we're inside a nested element or not. For example, if I hit enter, I'm not taken inline with the body tag, but instead I'm automatically indented. This is because I'm currently wrapped by body tags, which means that whatever I write now is going to be a child of the body parent. I'm going to just write a simple paragraph. If I go to the end of the paragraph and hit enter, I'll be taken inline with the paragraph. I'm not indented because the paragraph tags are not wrapping me where I am. It's still the body tags that are wrapping me. Now, not that you would ever do this, but because we haven't learned enough tags at this point, if I do another set of body tags and hit enter, you'll see that I'm again indented. And this is because I'm now again wrapped by body tags. Now, compared to the code we saw before that was all inline, I'm sure you can agree that indenting code like this shows the nested structure very well. So let's finish off by adding to our summary card. We looked at nesting and indenting. Nesting is the idea that HTML tags will wrap other elements, creating a hierarchical structure. Again, think of the Russian dolls. We introduced terminology of parent, which in this case are the body tags, as well as child, which in this case is the paragraph. Indenting is how we visually organize code to quickly identify the hierarchy of elements. In this case, the paragraph element is indented, clearly showing it is a child of the body tags. Nice one. We've now completed the Introduction to HTML section of the course. Next up, it's time to look at HTML text, where we'll learn about important text elements like headings, paragraphs, and lists, as well as see how comments work. We'll also start learning about how to use Chrome DevTools to inspect HTML elements on web pages. Let's begin by exploring how to structure content by using headings. We'll be discussing how headings are used, the heading tag, and heading hierarchy. So, what are HTML headings? Headings help break up different sections of a web page. This is the Monday.com homepage. It's a project management tool. I don't personally use it, but I've always admired their UX and UI. And we'll be looking at it throughout this section when learning about different HTML tags. As you can see, the homepage has a large main heading, which says a platform built for a new way of working. Scrolling down, the homepage also has other kinds of headings, like this section heading, everything you need for any workflow, where the content below is dedicated to talking about Monday.com's features. There is also a smaller subheading here, which details one of the specific features, in this case, dashboards. Now let's take a look at how we write headings in HTML with the heading tag. We have the heading opening tag, the heading closing tag, and the heading content get started, which these tags wrap. Looking more closely at the heading tag, the letter H stands for heading, and the number is the number of levels or hierarchy. So what exactly do we mean by levels or hierarchy? In HTML, there are 6 different heading tags. They are H1, H2, H3, H4, H5, and H6. Let's have a look at these inside VS Code. I'm going to start a new HTML file. I'll first get the HTML boilerplate by hitting !enter, and then I'm going to simply write out each of these headings. H1, enter, and I'm just going to write the text heading 1, H2, enter, and writing the text heading 2, H3, H4, H5, and H6. Now, of course, you could put whatever heading text you like. I'm just keeping it simple and writing the name of the heading. Let's go ahead and save this HTML file. I'm just going to call it headings.html and save it on my desktop. Once I open up this file in the browser, this is what we see. I'm going to zoom in slightly on the browser. So what you can see here is that the different heading types have different visual sizes, where H1 has the largest text and H6 has the smallest text. The heading sizes are actually not important. We'll be changing these in the CSS section. What is important when it comes to the numbers in the heading tag is the concept of heading hierarchy. So what is heading hierarchy? Headings are used to achieve a clear and logical structure. Starting at H1, this is the highest level main title heading. It usually appears at the top of a page and should only be used once per page. For example, on Monday.com's homepage, we had our main heading here. This would be an H1 and would look like this as a complete HTML H1 heading element. Next up, we have the H2 heading, which is a heading that groups content. We typically see this kind of heading being used at the top of a discrete section of a web page, like a how it works, testimonials, or a call to action. For example, on Monday.com, the H2 is being used as a heading for the features section, and would look like this as a complete HTML H2 heading element. Then we have H3, H4, H5, and H6, which are subheadings with decreasing importance. It also becomes less common to use the lower value headings, like an H5 and H6, as it is rare to have a need for headings at such a low level, but they are there just in case you do need them. For example, on Monday.com, an H3 is being used here as a subheading, which is detailing a particular feature, and would look like this as a complete HTML H3 heading element. Hopefully, it is now clearer that while headings from H1 to H6 vary in size visually, the primary significance of the numbers is to establish hierarchy, where going from H1 to H6 there is decreasing importance. We saw that high-level headings such as H1 are reserved for the most important content, like the main heading of a web page, while H3 is a lower heading typically used for less critical sections, like the title of a specific feature in a section of a page. So let's summarize this chapter and start to build out the summary card for this topic, HTML text. We've learnt about HTML headings. We saw there were 6 heading types ranging from H1 to H6, where the significance of the numbers is there to establish hierarchy. So it's time to kick off the Quill project. So let's start coding up the HTML for the Quill homepage by adding in all the headings. The main heading of our page will be an H1. The heading of the features section will be an H2. And the subheadings in the features section will be H3s. The heading in the call to action will be an H2, as it is kind of like a title for this section. The first thing I'm going to do is delete these files. We don't need them anymore. I'm then going to make a new folder on my desktop called Quill. And this is where all our files for our project will be saved. I'm going to make a new HTML document inside VS Code. Like always, I go New File, click Text File, select the language, and search HTML. I'm going to get our boilerplate code by typing !enter, and then I'm straight away going to save this file. On my Mac, I hit Command S, and I'm going to save it inside the Quill folder. Now, it's very typical for a homepage to be called index.html. This is fairly standard notation you're going to see elsewhere as well. I'm now going to go ahead and save this file. Let's also update the title of the document to Quill, so that when we open it in the browser, we'll see the name Quill in the tab. We'll come down to the body and start adding our headings. Now, I highly recommend you code along with me, and to make your life a bit easier, I've made a file with just all the homepage text for this project. You can download it from the description below, and then easily copy and paste the text for all the different text elements we will be adding. So you don't need to type it all out yourself. as some of the text we're going to be adding is a bit chunkier. The first heading was an H1 and had the text "Mindful Living for the Digital World." The next heading was an H2 and had the text "Finally, a simple and easy to use journal app." We then have our subheadings, which are H3s, and we had 3 of them. I want to show you a quick trick that I sometimes use. If we have multiples of an element we want, in this case 3, we can type the element name, H3, multiplied by 3, and hit enter. And this will give us 3 H3 tags. Our first subheading was "Write all your journals in a few clicks." Next, we had "Beautifully displayed and neatly organized." And the final H3 was "Create and reflect from anywhere in the world." Final heading we had was the H2 at the bottom, which was the call to action at the bottom, "Get started now." Now, when I'm writing my HTML, I personally like putting line breaks between the different sections, so it's clearer for me to see. I'm just going to pop a line break here and a line break here. Doing this won't have any impact on the HTML, but makes it cleaner and easier for me to read, as it divides the different sections of the page. One small thing I want you to notice is the heading hierarchy here. You don't have to move from H1 to H6 sequentially. In fact, most of the time you'll have code that looks like this, where the decreasing importance is contained within a specific section. Like the features section starts with an H2 and then moves to H3s. As we move to the call to action section at the bottom, we move back to an H2. So just be mindful that when you're writing your HTML code, it's very normal not to have your code move from H1 to H6 in the entire document, but rather have a decreasing heading hierarchy within a section like this, where we start at H2 and move to H3s. Let's see what this looks like in our browser. I'm going to open the Quill folder and open up index.html. You've written your first bit of HTML for our Quill project. It's nothing spectacular, but we've made a start. Next, we'll discuss how to organize text blocks by using paragraphs. We'll be discussing where paragraphs are used and the paragraph tag. So, what are paragraphs? They are structural text units that group together related ideas and typically provide more detail of what is being discussed after a heading. On the Monday.com homepage, we can see this description text below the main heading, which is a single sentence paragraph. Lower down on the homepage, we have a larger chunk of text, which is a multi-sentence paragraph. Here is Monday.com's terms and conditions. And you can see here we have multiple paragraphs. I can tell it is multiple paragraphs instead of just one massive paragraph due to the line break between them, something we'll look at soon. Let's take a look at the paragraph tag. We have the paragraph opening tag, the paragraph closing tag, and the paragraph content wrapped by these tags. Let's go and write some HTML paragraphs inside VS Code. I'm going to start a new file like we always do by clicking New File, clicking Text File, selecting Language, typing HTML, and hitting Enter. I'll straight away get my HTML boilerplate by hitting !Enter, and we'll save this file on the desktop and call it paragraphs.html. And let's update the title of this document to paragraphs. To write a paragraph, we just hit P and Enter to get our paragraph tags. And to get some placeholder text, VS Code has lorem ipsum built in. If I just type LOR, we'll see lorem come up, and I'll hit Enter and get this placeholder text. Just for some background, lorem ipsum is common placeholder text used in visual and graphic design. I think it's originally from some ancient Roman text. I'm going to get another set of paragraph tags. I'm going to type lorem, and like the trick we saw earlier, I'm going to multiply this by 4 to get a larger chunk of text. Let's take a look at this in our browser. I'm going to open up the paragraphs HTML file, and we can see here our 2 paragraphs. You'll notice that there's automatically a line break inserted between the paragraphs. So if this was just one paragraph in HTML, we wouldn't see a line break here. Now, if you want to spice things up with your placeholder text, this is a fantastic tool I sometimes use. It's called Hipster Ipsum, where instead of placeholder Latin, we get placeholder hipster words. You've got some different criteria you can fill out, but let's just go BME. And as you can see, we get some fantastic hipster words, like tacos, quinoa, and gluten-free. You can simply copy and paste this placeholder text and put it inside your paragraphs. So let's put another paragraph here and paste in our hipster text. And as you can see, it just adds that extra bit of edge to our placeholder text. So let's finish off by adding to our summary card. We had a look at the paragraph element. It's made up of a opening and closing tag wrapping the paragraph text. Let's now go ahead and add paragraphs to our Quill homepage. We have a single sentence paragraph below the main heading. We also have paragraph text below each of the subheadings in the features section. And right at the bottom, we have this small piece of paragraph text, made with love in London. Let's go ahead and code this up. Typically in VS Code, we actually work inside a folder instead of opening individual files. So I'm going to now open up our index.html file inside the Quill folder. So I head over to the desktop, I click on the Quill folder and click Open. You can see the Quill folder appears as a drop-down here. And as we add more files, they'll all nicely be stored inside this Quill folder. I'm going to double-click on the index.html file, which is where we're working. I'm now going to add in the paragraphs, and to avoid making this viewing experience painful, I'm just going to copy and paste them in. I'll hit Enter, type P to add a set of paragraph tags. I'll copy in the text. Next, I need to add in the 3 different paragraph texts under each subheading. To improve the readability of this, I'm going to add in some spacing like this. This nicely groups together our H3 and paragraphs. Just a quick note on this heart symbol. It's a typographic symbol I just got off Google. I typed in heart symbol and copied and pasted it. The browser is smart enough to know how to render it correctly. And we can also copy and paste emojis, which we'll be adding later on in the course. So let's now take a look at this in our browser. We can now see our headings and paragraphs, and the page is beginning to take some form. Again, just a reminder, the line breaks inside the HTML document have no impact inside the browser. For example, if I clump these all back together, save and refresh, you'll see there will be no impact. Moving on, we'll see how to present information clearly by using lists. We'll be talking about ordered lists, unordered lists, and nested lists. First up, we'll be looking at the different list types. There are 2 list types in HTML that are used for different purposes. The first is the ordered list, more commonly known to us as a numbered list, which are used when order matters, like cooking instructions. The second is the unordered list, which we often call bulleted lists. These are used when order does not matter, like a shopping list. We'll take a look at the ordered list first. An ordered list is a list with numbers that presents items in a clear and organized way. For example, here is the bottom of a Wikipedia page on Ali G, my favorite satirical character. You can see here that the list links to references used in the page. Numbers are used, and the order of the list is important as it reflects the order in which the references appear in the Wikipedia page. One of my favorite Ali G interviews is with Buzz Aldrin, the second guy on the moon after Neil Armstrong. Throughout the interview, he shows so much patience with Ali G, and to tip it all off, he ends the interview like this.
So listen up. You has heard about the moon and about space. You better learn about these things from my man Buzz Lightyear here. So you better realize that these things
Buzz Aldrin's facial expression is priceless after being called Buzz Lightyear.
Is important. Big up yourself.
Alright, back to HTML. Let's now take a look at the ordered list tags. There are two components to lists in HTML. For ordered lists, the first component are the OL tags, standing for ordered list. Just like the other HTML tags we've seen so far, we have an ordered list opening tag and an ordered list closing tag. These tags then wrap the actual items we are listing. In this example, I'm listing the top positions in the English Premier League. In first position is Liverpool, second place Arsenal, and third place Man City. You can now see here the second component of an HTML list, the list or LI tags, where we have a list opening tag and a list closing tag, which wraps the list content. The list items are indented and nested inside the ordered list tags. Let's jump into VS Code and make an ordered list. I'm first going to make a new HTML file. As always, I'm going to get our boilerplate HTML, and let's call the title of this document lists, and we'll save this on our desktop, calling it lists.html. We'll be making a few lists in this document, so I'm first going to add an H2 heading and call it ordered list. When I was creating this video, I was trying to think of good examples of ordered lists, and I thought IKEA instructions was a good idea. I found it pretty funny that when you search IKEA instructions in Google Images, you end up finding some fairly funny rip-offs, like Fortress. This is something I always build with my kids. So let's go and make an ordered list for building a mattress fortress. We type OL and hit enter to get our ordered list tags. I then hit enter so we can start writing our list items. Like we discussed in the document structure video, because VS Code knows that the OL tags are going to be parents of list items, it automatically indents it for me. Our mattress fortress has 4 steps, so I'm going to type li for list item times 4. The first instruction is find a couch. The second instruction is gather mattresses and blankets. The third step is lay mattress on its side next to the couch. And the last step is drape blankets over the top for a roof. Let's now see what this looks like in our browser. So you can see for the ordered list, we automatically get numbers assigned to each list item. The second list type is the unordered list. The unordered list is a list with bullet points to present items in an easy-to-read way. On the same Ali G Wikipedia page, we have a list of people interviewed by Ali G. The order of this list is not important. It is just a general list of people he has interviewed in no particular order. So bullets are used as an effective way of listing these items. Moving on to the unordered list tags. Similar to the ordered list, there are 2 components. Instead of OL tags, we use UL tags, which, as you guessed it, stand for unordered lists. There is an unordered list opening tag and an unordered list closing tag. In this example, I am listing pizza toppings, where the order of the toppings does not matter. The actual HTML for the list item in the unordered list and ordered list is identical. We have the same list opening tag and the same list closing tag, which wraps the list content. The list items are again indented and nested. Let's jump back into VS Code and write an unordered list. We'll be working in the same document, so I'm going to add another H2 heading and call this unordered list. I'm going to be listing out my 3 favorite relationship quotes, ones that I'm saying to myself on a daily basis. For the unordered list, we're going to go get our UL tags, so type UL and hit enter. We're going to hit enter again so we can start typing our list items. As I said, there were 3 list items, so I'm going to type li to get my list tag and multiply this by 3 to get 3 sets of list tags. The first quote I use all the time in my marriage, which is, "It's better to be happy than right." The second quote is, "People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care." And my final quote is, "It's free to smile." Let's see what the unordered list looks like in the browser. So you can see that the unordered list automatically has bullet points, whereas the ordered list has numbers. So UL tags gives us bullets, where OL tags gives us numbers. And again, the actual list tags are identical between the two different types of lists. The last concept we need to tackle is nested lists, which is a list within a list. We'll be starting with an ordered list, which details a series of steps for planning an event. The first step is initial research. The second step is send out invitations. And the third step is arrange catering. Now, it is common to want to list further details of some of these list items. For example, in initial research, there are several things you need to do. So we can introduce another list, in this case, an unordered list like this. It's nested inside the list tags. Now, inside the unordered list tags, just like the regular list, we list items with LI tags. So as part of initial research, things we might need to do include deciding a date and time, and setting a budget. So let's now have a look at what we have going from top to bottom. We first have the main parent list with the OL ordered list tags. We can describe this as a parent. The unordered list has 3 list items: the initial research, the sending out invitations, and arrange catering. These are the children of the ordered list. Then inside the first list item, we have a nested list. So let's play around with this inside VS Code. So I'm back inside the HTML file we were working with earlier. I'm first going to go add another H2 and give it the text nested list. I'll be making a nested list of things you take on holiday. I'm going to first list out different categories of things using an unordered list. I'll create 3 list items, and the categories will be clothing, toiletries, and electronics. Now I'm going to go create a nested list inside each of these list items. To do that, I hit enter at the start of the closing list tag, and I'm going to add another unordered list here. I'm just going to add 2 different clothing types. The first is a t-shirt, and the second are jeans. For toiletries, I'm going to go and do the same thing. I'm going to come to the start of the closing tag. I'm going to hit enter. I'm going to grab our unordered list tags, and I'm going to add 3 different toiletries. The first is a toothbrush, then shampoo, and then soap. And for the category electronics, again, I hit enter at the start of the closing list tag. I grab the unordered list, and I'm just going to add 2 different items here, a laptop and a phone. So let's check this out in the browser. So here you can see our nested list. The first level of the list has the different categories of clothing, toiletries, and electronics. And note the style of the bullet is a solid black fill. And in each category, you can see the nested list items. And note that it's automatically indented, and it has a different style bullet, with no fill and a light black border. I want to finish off the concept of nested lists by highlighting you can mix and match ordered and unordered lists. I'll be building this table where the first level represents the parent list, and the second level represents the nested list or child list. So let's fill it out. If we had an ordered list as the parent, and an ordered list as the child, it would look like this. If we had an ordered list as the parent, and an unordered list as the child, it would look like this. If we had an unordered list as the parent, and an ordered list as the child, it would look like this. And finally, if we had an unordered list as the parent, and an unordered list as the child, it would look like this. Of course, we can continue to go another level deep, but I just wanted to get the idea across. You have complete freedom to mix and match lists when creating nested lists. So let's finish off by adding to our summary card. We looked at lists. We started by looking at the ordered list, commonly known as numbered lists, which have a set of OL tags wrapping list items in LI tags. We then looked at unordered lists, commonly known as bulleted lists, which have a set of UL tags wrapping list item LI tags. Finally, we looked at nested lists, where we have a first level parent list, and where a child list item can contain a list itself on a second level, called a nested list. That is, a list within a list. So let's now go ahead and use HTML lists on our Quill homepage. Now, like many of you, this wouldn't be your first rodeo making lists. I'm sure you make them all the time when working inside Google Docs or even when writing emails. When it comes to building web pages in HTML, it's actually pretty rare to use ordered and unordered lists as you would in everyday life. They are more commonly used to create a structural unit. A very common use of the list tags are navigation items, like this login and register button over here, where we would use an unordered list to create the structure. Don't worry for now that there will be bullet points. We will take care of that later in CSS. Another location we'd use a list to create a structural unit are these buttons over here, where again we'll be using an unordered list. At the bottom of the page, we have these social media icons over here, which are going to live inside an unordered list. And we also have this small navigation menu with home, login, and register, which are also going to be inside an unordered list. So hopefully you're understanding from this that it's common to use lists to create a structural unit that groups together related items, like links in a navigation menu. So let's now jump into VS Code. So let's first add the list for the login and register. I'm going to make some space here. I'm going to grab the unordered list tags. There'll be two list items, one for login and one for register. I'm going to come under the paragraph here and again add another unordered list with two list items. The first is get started and the second is learn more. I'm then going to scroll to the bottom and underneath get started, I'm going to add another unordered list, and this list is for the social media icons. Now for now, we don't have icons, so I'm just going to put some placeholder text for them. We had 5 social media icons. The first was Instagram, the second was Facebook, the third was TikTok, the fourth was LinkedIn, and the fifth was YouTube. Below this, we then had that mini navigation menu, which had 3 links. So again, I'll add an unordered list and add 3 list items. The first was home, the second was login, and the last was register. All right, so let's check this out in the browser. So here you can see our list items. We have login and register at the top, get started and learn more over here. And at the bottom, we have what will be our social media icons, and then that mini navigation menu. Now, just a few notes. The first is we will be removing these bullets when we get to the CSS section. And the second note, I just want to reinforce the idea that lists are commonly used to create structural units that group together related items, commonly things like links, buttons, and social media icons. Now let's learn how to include helpful notes in your code by using comments. We're going to be talking about the purpose of comments and comment syntax. So what are comments? Comments are notes inside an HTML document that are not displayed in the browser. There are 2 main use cases of commenting in our code. The first is to write notes to self. These comments are to-do placeholders useful for reminders on future actions. For example, a comment may be, add in buttons here later. The second way to use comments is for documentation. These comments are explanatory notes useful for when revisiting your own code or when others are looking at it. An example of this comment would be, these icons link to social media. It gives a description of what the icons are doing. Let's now take a look at comment syntax. Here is an example of a comment in HTML. It has an opening delimiter, which is made up of a left angle bracket, an exclamation mark, and 2 dashes. A delimiter just means a sequence of characters. The closing delimiter is 2 dashes with a right angle bracket. The comment text is between the delimiters, usually with a space on either side to improve readability. A comment is not an HTML element, and as mentioned earlier, it is not rendered in the browser. Now the good news is that you do not need to remember this syntax. For the Mac shortcut, it's the Command key and /, and the Windows shortcut is the Control key and /. Comment syntax does vary across different languages like CSS and JavaScript, but the good news is it's the same shortcut for all of them. So let's finish up the summary card for the HTML text chapter. We looked at comments. A comment has this syntax, with an opening and closing delimiter, and the comment content between them. And just remember that shortcut, Command /